I said last year, after he left in the first week of the season and just had a sabbatical, a hiatus, I said on the air, I said, he may be the first superstar level player I would ever consider moving for bench players. Just make Harden, Durant are fine, fortify the bench, I'm out. From the flat earth now to the vaccine issue, I take it you are a huge Kyrie fan, but let's start with this premise. With the addition of Patty Mills to the bench, LaMarcus Aldridge, Blake Griffin, I think Brooklyn can win the championship with Durant, Harden, and no Kyrie if they could just trade him and fortify the bench a little. Do you believe that?
Oh, if you get a full healthy season out of KD, and Harden prior to last year had always been healthy.
Right.
Not only do I think they could win the championship that way, I think they actually would be better off.
Yeah.
Even if Kyrie had none of the vaccine stuff, if the vaccine issue didn't exist, once they got James Harden, Kyrie was a surplus of value they didn't need. What they need is some size. What they need is some defense. And what they need is someone who is happy to not have the ball in their hands. None of that is Kyrie Irving. So, yeah, I think that, and this is all so tricky because the problem is, Colin, Kyrie Irving's like, once part of the trade I talked about before any of the vaccine stuff came up that I thought fixed everyone's problems was Kyrie and Ben Simmons. The Sixers need what Kyrie has. The Nets need what Ben Simmons has. It's weird because they're kind of competing with each other. Would you make the trade? But maybe they would. The Sixers absolutely would not make that trade now. Kyrie's trade value is where all you could get is role players. Like the team that, again, it would make sense, but you potentially have the vaccine issues is the Clippers. Like Zach Lowe talked about this. Marcus Morris and stuff. Those types of Marcus Morris, Reggie Jackson, one other guy, that actually helps the Nets. They need guys who don't need the ball. I would have said Kyrie for Kristaps, like, is an interesting one because Kyrie, by the way, when was he at his best alongside LeBron? Who's the player in the league whose game is most similar to LeBron? Luka. Like that could work. And the Nets, Kristaps doesn't have to have the ball in his hands. But again, the vaccine stuff kills him with the Mavs. It's a insane position where a guy who was 50, 40, 90, the healthiest guy on the Nets last year, is now not only expendable, but didn't you find this interesting, Colin? James Harden and Kevin Durant told the truth about having not spoken with Kyrie.
Thought it was huge.
I couldn't believe it because those are sharp guys. And they knew that by saying we haven't spoken, that's a story. And they could have just said they could have either lied or said we're going to keep personal conversations personal, not going to get into it. The other thing I thought was interesting was when KD said that, he had a whole thing with the media. KD was in a great mood. He was happy. He was like, he said at one point, he's like, listen, I know you guys are going to be asking these questions all year, and I get it. You have a job to do. And when KD's in a good mood, he's really interesting. He's really honest, all this stuff. I thought, I'd psychoanalyzing him, but I think it's pretty interesting that a couple days after the Nets are like, Kyrie, go home for the season, KD's in a good mood. Yeah. Like KD's not pissed about it. In fact, he seems happy about it. Yeah. And the fact he hasn't talked to Kyrie, I think KD's like, oh my God, this guy is, the juice is not worth the squeeze, no matter how sweet the juice is.
No. Joy Taylor and I talked about this, is players send messages all the time. KD, I think you're spot on. I think KD and Harden, I think they sent a message to ownership. It's like, we're good here. You know, we're good. We're good without Kyrie. And I also think, I was told this years ago that the NBA chemistry is the most important because, like in offense and defense, in football practice and games, you just split off. If a guy's a jerk on the D line, offense doesn't deal with him a lot, right? Even the offensive coaches don't. Same in baseball. A third of your roster goes down to a bullpen. Some guys are in the clubhouse, the guys that aren't playing. But in basketball, man, it's a tiny plane You're all together. There's like 8 out of the 13 guys, and teams that hang out together and get along together, like Milwaukee and Phoenix, they generally play well together. And by Harden saying I haven't even talked to him, forget connecting. If you and I didn't talk, if you were going through a crisis and you and I hadn't talked, forget doing a podcast, talked in a month, we're out.
So we're not friends. It means we're not friends. It means we're absolutely, if someone said, if all of a sudden you were gone from FS1 and a week later someone was like, hey, how's Colin doing? And I'm like, don't know, haven't spoken. You know what they would think? Oh, weird. I thought you guys were close. I assumed you guys were friends. I guess you were, like, it would be shocking. And so it's like, it's incredibly telling. And I think that now what the Nets can't have happen, obviously, is have something happen to KD or Harden. They don't have any insurance for that now. They did have some insurance for that before, but like most teams in the league. Like, guess what? The Lakers can't have anything happen to LeBron or AD, and the Bucks can't have anything happen to Giannis or Middleton. Like, that's kind of how the league works. You can't have one of your 2 best guys get hurt.
Finally, I want to do one other topic. I actually felt bad the other day. New Laker Russell Westbrook was quoted saying, hey, I'm the NBA villain. And I thought, wait a minute. That's not right. I cannot love his game, but he's a good guy. He's a good family guy. He shouldn't be a villain. And the way he said it, whenever somebody says, I don't need to be liked, well, everybody needs to be liked. Everybody wants to be liked. LeBron hated being a villain for a year. He hated it. Michael loved being hated in Detroit, but he loved being loved everywhere else. When I was in Portland and Michael came to town, he was more popular than any Blazer. Everywhere he went in the league outside of like Detroit or New York, even in New York, the city loved Michael Jordan, right? He played great there. But I thought to myself with Russell Westbrook is I actually think he works for the Lakers. They need 37 minutes a night. They need energy. It's an old roster. I actually thought to myself, you know what? If he plays here 3 years, and I think he can be a little bit like a more talented Alex Caruso. He gives you incredible intensity. He'll get along with LeBron. He's a good hang. The part of this league is, are you a good hang? But I felt kind of sympathy when he said, I think I'm the league's villain. And I thought, that's usually like a guy who gets into fights or he's a jerk. And I'm like, Russell's not a jerk. He's a flawed player.
Well, right. So that's, I think, an important distinction. He's never been in trouble. He's never been a bad guy. He's one of the few NBA super duper stars that doesn't have like a big group of people around him. By the way, not there's anything wrong with it, but like it's people, it's his wife. I think it's his brother. He has a very small circle, seems to be an intense family guy and a private guy who's the only thing we know about him off the court is he's super into fashion. Now, people might not like his fashion. I think he's pretty courageous with it, to be honest. I think he takes risks with that, and I think that's cool. But yeah, so Russ has always been a guy who is polarizing because of his style, and there is a lot of Iverson to him in that. Sure. Listen, there are some deeply devoted fans that ignore some of the pretty obvious flaws in the game. But then the flip side of that is the analytics community that will argue that Iverson, the analytics crush Iverson. And that does, at some point, what the guys who play the game say about someone has to matter at least a little. And when they're like, you don't understand. No, because I'm putting this wrong. Analytics say, well, if anyone put up that many shots, they would score a ton of points. And what the players say is, yeah, but most guys literally can't put up that many shots. They don't have the stamina. They don't have do you know how hard it is to shoot the ball 30 times? And so with Russ, people are like, oh, if anyone was really focused on getting triple doubles, my argument would be, I would imagine in the last 40 years, there have been other guys who are like, I'd like to get triple doubles, but nobody's gotten them at the rate of Russ since Oscar Robertson. So clearly there are some things he does well, and clearly he's a special player. He also is, if he's your best guy, you're screwed. What the Lakers are trying to figure out is, and Russ has never been in this position, is what if he's your third best guy? We've seen him as the second best guy. Right. And it was really good a couple of years, but usually more bad than good or mediocre than good. We've seen him as the best guy. It's entertaining, it's exciting, but you're not going to be good. Now we get to see him as your third best guy. And that's fascinating to me, especially if he's never been on a team with someone with a stronger personality. I think he is now. I think LeBron, even if it's a different type, LeBron has such a gravitational pull of leadership that I think even the biggest alphas kind of understand, all right, I'm not LeBron. I might be I might not, get checked by anyone else in the league. Kevin Durant, I wouldn't let him say a sideways word to me. But LeBron's almost in a different category. So I do think that it can work. Do I think it's guaranteed to work? No. And do I think that there's a chance that the Lakers simply don't have enough shooting? Yeah, that's possible. But it's also possible that they're going to be big and strong. And because of Russ, they're going to have not only going to exhaust you defensively with their length, they're going to exhaust you offensively because Russ is going to just be running. It's like, oh my God, he's just a pain in the ass to deal with. Well, so we'll see.
Listen, I'm critical of Russ, but there is your cultural impact matters in the NBA more than any other sport. Allen Iverson's more important culturally to the league than Karl Malone, who drove tractors. So there are players that their cultural imprint, Dr. J, his importance, Allen Iverson, is more. They matter more than Karl Malone or John Stockton. I have no problem acknowledging that. I mean, so I think you're right on with that.